at approximately 10:30 p.m., one of our night shift patrol sergeant from Midwest Division was on routine patrol when he observed a vehicle doing donuts in a private parking lot. Um, Moments later, the vehicle got onto the 6,000 block of Fairdale and began to travel eastbound. At that moment, the sergeant activated his emergency lights to conduct a traffic stop, and the vehicle accelerated at a very high speed, where it created a significant distance between the officer and the vehicle itself. Um, then in the 6200 block of Fairdale, once the sergeant got to that location, he observed that the vehicle had struck three pedestrians who are valet employees for local businesses in the area. And also, the vehicle went into a ditch and then hit a fixed object where it came to final resting point. The driver and the passenger for the vehicle were transported to a local hospital, where they received non-life-threatening injuries, and they are at this time we're investigating if the driver was impaired or not. Now, far as the three pedestrians that were walking possibly on the south side of the roadway are deceased at the scene. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to yield to Sean Tier, who will discuss his part of the investigation. But I do want to mention the Vehicle Crime Division is out here, and as you can see behind me, they're processing the scene, gathering evidence, taking pictures, and also looking at the local surveillance videos. Now I'll yield to Sean Tier.
Thank you, Chief. Sean Tier, Seanteare, Chief of the Harris County DA's Office Vehicular Crimes Division. As the Chief said, we're out here because one person decided they didn't want to get a ticket or potentially go to jail for a misdemeanor. The sergeant, we've all had an opportunity to at least initially look at some dash cam footage. We're still collecting a lot more evidence before we close this scene up. But from what we've seen, the sergeant saw this individual doing donuts, activated his emergency equipment as the individual in the white sedan came onto Fairdale, and it's almost immediate. You can see the speed accelerate, and we're not talking about a large street that we're all standing on. We're standing on Fairdale right now. This is at best 2-lane road with speed bumps. This was at about 10:30 at night, and that car is really moving. We're estimating at least 60 miles an hour by the end of this crash, if not much more. And they're headed eastbound on Fairdale directly into two very large nightclubs that sit on either side of Fairdale and Richmond. When this individual struck those three valets, he went from a felony evading arrest to a felony murder. That's a 3rd-degree felony up to 3 charges of 1st-degree felony. And we're talking about 3 individuals who were just out here working. I mean, they were out here doing their job. They were coming back from parking cars, going to get more cars. So this one is as egregious as we've seen in a very long time in regards to a pursuit or something like that. As the Chief said, HPD's traffic division is at the hospital right now. Their DWI task force, they're evaluating the driver. There were at least initial signs that intoxication may play a role here. We don't know whether it does or not, but it's not going to change the severity of this charge. This is the highest charge we can charge. 3 different charges of felony murder. If he is intoxicated, that's going to be an additional aggravating factor on top of the fact that he just snatched 3 people's lives for no reason. But the charge is going to remain the same. Each of those charges carries a punishment range of anywhere from 5 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice all the way up to life in prison. So Vehicular Crimes Division is out here right now for HPD, and they're collecting a huge amount of evidence. We're gonna get surveillance footage. The crash reconstruction unit is going to be able to piece this together literally inch by inch from where we first came into contact with this car all the way to where it finally came to rest. We're going to know everything that this car did, and that's because they are as good as there is in the state, if not the country. I work with the VCD of HPD every day, and these guys know exactly what they're doing. So one of the messages tonight to the families, and we will convey this again and again, the justice for their loved ones is in the best hands it could possibly be. And we're going to continue to go forward. We're going to put this all together. And at the end of the day, we're going to prosecute this individual to the fullest extent of the law, because this is completely unacceptable.
Any questions?
Sean, can you tell us about the suspect here? Does he have a history, felony history that you know of?
So we are still in the process of positively identifying. He was transported immediately due to his injuries from this crash to the hospital. As I said, HPD's traffic division, their DWI task force, is currently with him. They are going to do all of the things that we have to do in a very time-sensitive way, which is evidence is leaving his body right now if intoxication did play a role. So those are the very first things we have to do. We've got to figure out if he's intoxicated. If so, we've got to get that evidence before it's gone. After that, then we're going to determine who he is. We're going to determine exactly what his history is. We're going to determine why he was in that parking lot doing those dangerous stunts in the first place. And by the end, we're going to figure out who he was with, hopefully. So all of those things are going to come in due time, but this is a process, and the way that HPD and law enforcement has to go about this is we've got to do the highest priority things first. And right now, we need to make sure that intoxication wasn't a role, didn't play a role, and if it did, we need to get that evidence as quickly as possible. After that, we'll be doing fingerprints, we'll identify him, and then we'll find out all of those questions.
Sean, you'd mentioned the possibility of 4 felony charges. Would he potentially be facing additional felony charges with respect to the racing and the donuts and stuff? And
so if we get to that point, in all likelihood, those are going to be misdemeanor charges. And typically we're not going to bog down a misdemeanor court with something that carries a punishment range of 6 months or a year when the individual is facing numerous charges that carry life in prison. What we have potentially on top of the 3 felony murders that we already have are a charge for the passenger in the car. There was a passenger who we believe was pretty severely injured, but again, we don't have the exact injuries yet on that. But if it rises to the level of serious bodily injury on that individual, then we've got any number of charges that we could possibly file, amongst them being a reckless aggravated assault, or if the individual is intoxicated, the suspect in this case, then an intoxication assault. So the charges are not final as we leave this scene tonight. We're going to look at every possible way to hold this person accountable for the carnage that they wrought tonight.